following announcement has been paid for by the WZWA Network.
Well, it is I, the lyrical miracle, the sexual, intellectual, the cunning linguist, and the quintessential Studmuffin, Joel Gertner. And you are watching the Insider's Edge podcast. Keep listening and watching and have yourself an EARGASM.
Hi, everybody. This is former WWE superstar Al Snow.
Regional Bennett.
T.W. Anderson.
Sean Oliver.
My name is Eugene.
And you are watching the Insider's Edge podcast.
Now get on the
Train.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Insider's Edge podcast here on the WZWA Network in conjunction with Blue Wire Hustle. I'm your host with the most on the West Coast, Karlifornia Infirri. It is great to be with you once again. And you know what? Someone else is here that I haven't had on the show with me for a little while. It's my co-host. He's none other than Mr. 55 Live, Jack Wallace. Jack, how you going?
Yes, it is wonderful to be back. I'm excited to be back. Life just gets in the way. I've got to start a new full-time job recently, so it's all over the shop in terms of my life, but still going to try and make as many interviews as I can. Love to host them, love to be here, Carl, and love to be here with our guest.
Yeah, bro. I'm happy to have you back, and I know that it's been hard for you having to be up so early for work in the morning, and most of the time these interviews are late at night. So good to have you back, bro. But look, at this time we finally have this guy on the show, a bucket list guy that we've been wanting since day dot. And Jack, I'm going to do it. I have to do the introduction the way that he would introduce himself back in the day, and I've written my own one. So I hope you both like it. But look. He is none other than the quintessential Studmuffin, Joel. He's a star from a fed down in Philly, where he wasn't shy about freeing Willie. He made his name and went on to raise his stock as a legend at the Travelodge for the size of his cock. ECW went away, which we all know is sad. He didn't go to New York, which makes me kind of mad. Because if he was in the WWE, you wouldn't find him on Tinder because he'd be banging Steph and sticking it in Linda Gertner.
That's amazing.
Wow. I love it. That's great, man. That's authentic right there. That is official.
There you go. Get the seal of approval, Carl.
Oh, that's great, man. That's why I had like butterflies in my stomach before this, because I was like, oh, I really hope he likes what I came with. So Joel, great to have you on the show, my friend. Me and Jack, very excited to talk to you. As per usual, every time we interview someone on the show, the first question always is how you became a wrestling fan when you were young.
Gosh, a friend of mine, I was watching game shows a lot on TV. Big TV fan, but I was watching game shows a lot. I hadn't found wrestling yet. And a friend of mine at summer day camp said, you should try watching this wrestling thing. And I tried it on for size. And man, it was just, I was taken aback by how there were things that you would see and things that you would hear on wrestling that you wouldn't see or hear anywhere else on television, not even close. So yeah, just started watching it, started getting newsletters, found out about a school, a gym in New York City, not too far from me. Started going there, doing shows, meeting people, and man, it started from there. I've been doing it since about my 16th birthday as an active performer. I started as a tape trader a little bit before that, also as a teenager, but have been out there performing since about 16. I think later this year is going to be my 30 years.
Wow, man. Fuck yeah.
Crazy stuff, man. The bug bit you at an early age, and you were in there at an early age. So, I mean, how did you find your way to get into the business? You know, what was your first step? How did you, you went to a school, how was that process? Was that hard?
It was. I'm nobody's athlete. You know what I mean? I even as I was doing it, I knew I was setting myself up for failure. Kind of. I knew I was doing something worthwhile, but indirectly worthwhile. And that's what I did. I took a couple of classes. I learned how to take a back bump, which would pay off in ECW when I would wind up taking everybody's finish. And I learned how to run the ropes, and that was
Right.
it. And in a way, that's all I needed, because now, if I'm called upon to do, let's say, color commentary on an internet pay-per-view, you know, within the color commentary, I can draw upon those experiences and say, hey, you see Sabu out there doing what he's doing at the age of 50 or whatever, and you in your basement in your mom's house, and you think at the age of 23 that you can just go out there and do what Sabu just did. Well, let me tell you from experience, you wouldn't even be able to run the ropes without getting welts on your back. You wouldn't even know how to fall and protect. And I can actually call upon stuff like that was difficult for me to do,
Right.
because I had the experience of going through the motions and learning that the in between the ropes of it all was not for me.
Right. That's interesting. And another thing I find interesting is you saying that you would see wrestling on television and they would do and say things that you wouldn't normally see on television. That brings me to ECW. When you first see ECW, before you got involved, first of all, your mind must have been blown, but also, how did you get involved with ECW?
Yeah, I liked ECW as I was following it. I was at college, and I wasn't right near Philly. I was a few hours away. Actually, before I started working with the company, I might have gone to maybe about 2 live shows, but that was it. Um, I found out about them through the newsletters, through being a Wrestling Observer subscriber, and radio shows and stuff like that. Internet was kind of not really firing on all cylinders yet, but I was kind of on a preliminary version. I had something called Prodigy, which is one of these old kind of like Prodigy AOL CompuServe. It was kind of a bulletin board kind of thing. It was
Okay.
free World Wide Web. It was kind of late 80s, early 90s. So between that and whatnot, I knew of ECW. I started working there in September of 95, and I went to a show in August of 95 at the ECW arena. And I went and hung out after the show at what I was told was the local spot where everybody hangs out after the show. So I wanted, I had been working indies for coming up on 4 years. I was approaching my 20th birthday, and I was in town and decided that I would try to network. And I'm there at the hotel, and Paul Heyman is buzzing for an elevator.
Right.
And I knew nothing of what was called, or what is called, an elevator pitch that you could give, for example, to a CEO about your business or whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that there was such a thing as an elevator pitch. But in my mind, I saw him there, and I had a story to tell him about how I would love to work at their next show in Middletown, New York, which was not far, I said, from where I was going to college. It also wasn't close, but I didn't mention that. I just said, I introduced myself, and I said, I know that your ring announcing crew is based here out of Philly, and I know that you have a show coming up in a few weeks in Middletown, New York. I don't know. I don't want to step on anybody's toes. I don't want to take a gig away from anybody else, but it's not far from where I go to school. And I had told him in introducing myself that I was an admirer of his work, and that we had a mutual friend. And long story short, I just basically asked him for a job.
Right.
And he looked at me and he was like, "You want it?" I was like, "Well, yeah." He's like, "You got it. Be there by 5."
Oh, wicked, bro.
And that was it. Yeah. And be there by 5 turned into, 5+ years.
It's incredible.
That's awesome, man. Who were some of the first friends that you made in your first days at ECW? I mean, obviously, walking in there would have been sort of an odd bunch of guys in there. You would have been probably scared of a bunch of them too. But who were some of the first friends that you had made in ECW?
I think the same way I could be scared of them is the same way a lot of them were trepidatious. There were a few of them that were leery of me, and I don't, for no other reason, I guess, than, I was so young, and because I'm not in there bumping, I kind of gave off a vibe that I was not one of the boys. And so the same could be said with the shoe on the other foot. As far as who I befriended or who I met, I like to treat it the same way I liked to treat high school, and that was to just try to, be funny and be nice and be cool and utilize the golden rule and just kind of be friendly with everybody and try to get over with everybody and just kind of be accepted in everybody's clique. And I didn't think it was worthwhile to try to, not be anyone's friend. I thought it was, I had no reason not to be cool with everybody. So I tried my best to befriend everybody. Gosh, Axel Rotten was so cool, and Chris Candido, and of course, working with the Dudleys, I spent a lot of time with them. Then you've got a lot of guys that were geniuses and guys that a lot of people put over as geniuses, and some that you might not know were geniuses. Everybody knows Raven has a great aptitude for wrestling. A lot of people don't know how wrestling smart Sandman is and how curious and intellectual. I mean, Sandman would surprise a lot of people, I think, who might only want to talk to him about drinking beer. Blue Meanie is a friend to this day. And like I say, I mean, I hate to single him out and say a friend to this day, because I get along with everybody. I mean, like family, sometimes we have a spat between us and we just kind of get over it and it's water under the bridge. But gosh, I got along with everybody, and I tried to let everybody in, and anybody who wanted to be a friend, I was more than happy for it.
Yeah, and what were some of the stories of you guys partying at the infamous Travel Lodge? Carl has brought that up in the intro.
Oh man, dude, that place. Oh God. I'm watching a show on HBO. I don't know if you guys are familiar here in the States with HBO, but like all of the stuff that's like real edgy TV, Sopranos was on there, and like Game of Thrones, and like all the stuff that's like, it's not TV, it's HBO. I don't know. I think in the UK there's a similar thing called Bravo. I don't know what you guys get, but we're watching a show on HBO right now that we just started called Room 104. And it's like a Twilight Zone kind of like. The Travelodge was, I don't know, man. The first murder in Philadelphia of 1996, which was my first full year in the company. If you go back and look in the books, like open up the crime blotter, the first murder in Philly of 96 happened at the Travelodge. Right around the same time, unfortunately, there was a child who drowned in the hotel pool at the Travelodge. And there was something else too. I don't remember the other thing, but there was like this trifecta of things that happened within like 3 months of each other. Dude, this place, man, it was just awful. It was awful. You would get your hotel room key, and they would accidentally have given somebody else that same room as well.
Oh, no.
And you'd open up the door and you'd see like some couple on their honeymoon, like copulating. Like it was like
Beautiful.
it was like, dude, it was honestly it was like a it was like a pay cable television show. Like every third Saturday that we were there, it was like, it wasn't just like it was, you had to live through it. I mean, it was just, you never knew what you knew. You were going to the Travelodge. You never knew by the time you checked out on a Sunday morning. You never knew what your life would be for the 12 hours prior. You just had no idea. There was just no way of knowing what you were walking into. Even knowing what you were walking into, because you've been going there every 3 weeks, you just never knew exactly. Like the flavor of gum that you thought you liked from 3 weeks ago would never come back in style. It was always something different. I don't know, man.
Fantastic.
It sounds amazing. Back to actually ACW. How did you transition into an on-screen character after beginning as a ring announcer? I don't know. I haven't heard much of your ring announcing stuff, so that was it's kind of news to me, Carl. How long was that going for?
Oh, I think Joel will have a better answer than I would.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Joel, tell a story.
yeah. I started as a ring announcer and a timekeeper, like a backup ring announcer and a timekeeper. And I did that for a few months. And our primary ring announcer, Bob Ortiz, who a lot of people are familiar with from most big shows at the ECW arena, he had to miss November to Remember '95. November to Remember was like our WrestleMania. It was like our biggest show of the year. So I got tapped to ring announce that. He was gone for a little while. We were bringing in luchadors, and we were bringing in Damien 666 from Japan. So I spoke Spanish, and at college I took a couple of years of Japanese. So I spoke Japanese, and I was familiar with the ring intro styles of both. And so I would become the foreign language ring announcer as well. And from being the foreign language ring announcer, I was eventually, when Bob Ortiz was ready to come back from hiatus, I was made a heel ring announcer, kind of a valet, a mouthpiece, kind of an advocate type. And yeah. And did that with, bounced around from this guy to that guy, or from this team to that team, and finally landed on the Dudleys and was their ring announcer / manager for about 2.5 years. But ring announcing is fun. I loved listening to Howard Finkel when I was growing up watching wrestling. He was one of my favorites. Probably my original dream, even before thinking about could I be a great manager, my original dream, and I would have been happy enough to be a ring announcer, and was glad that I have had the opportunity to do that, and still do that on occasion. There's a company here in the States called VXS, Violence and Suffering, and I've started working with them recently. And they actually have a show dropping on IWTV today, Super Bowl Sunday here in the States, and have done some ring announcing with them, and it's fun to get back in there doing that. But yeah, ring announcing was really, really fun, and opened the door for me to move sideways, and luckily forwards, so that when Bob Ortiz came back full time, I was a heel ring announcer that transitioned into managing the Dudleys. And then I got to be a manager for a few years. And then when the Dudleys left and went to Vince, I got to take the step forward again and become the color commentator and co-host on what became our flagship show, ECW on TNN.
That's awesome, man. Like what a rise through the company in a short few years there. You mentioned working with the Dudleys, and I almost burst into laughter whilst you were talking, because I was thinking of the way that you would always announce Devon. It just always gets me. But working with the Dudley boys, that must have been some fun right there. The heat that those guys drew, there's some scary stuff right there. Tell me a little bit about what that experience was like with those guys.
It was cool to work with them. They were young as well. We were all in our 20s. We were all cutting our teeth in ECW. We weren't guys that were in ECW like some others that had been to WWF or been to WCW. We were all getting our big break together. We were all trying to get heat together. We were all trying to complement each other, not steal each other's thunder. So it was interesting. It made for a very sometimes just a very kind of electric kind of vibe between us. It seemed like Devon most of the time would be kind of a good cop influence as the Dudleys, the two of them, Bubba and Devon, would interact with me. Devon a lot of the time would be the good cop and Bubba would be the bad cop. And that was a dynamic that I think a lot of people, outside looking in could even see and understand what's going on. It was palpable that you could see that that Bubba was kind of a very take charge, speak up and hands-on and proactive and very interested in, just doing what was right for himself and right for the team and right for all of us. And it was just great to work with them. We all contributed. We all were creative. We all went out there and performed and tried to fire on all cylinders. We were, it was very much like a family. It really was. We might as well have been related. It might as well have been like, for lack of a better comparison, two brothers from the Samoan wrestling legacy who are out there being managed by their cousin, and they all go out there. And I don't think if we were related, it would have made us any more intense and any more effective, because effectively it was as if we were related, because we went out there and not as much like friends, but more like family. Because ECW was that little engine that could, and ECW was that fight against the machine and rage against the power and, just fight against the money of it all that, was trying their best to put us out of business and steal our thunder. And we just went out there and did what we could and helped each other.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. You could definitely tell the chemistry with you guys was just unbelievable. I always love watching some of that older stuff. I want to ask a little bit about the birth of the Quintessential Studmuffin and how you came up with the name, and how things slowly but surely evolved to the point where you would, saying your name and then giving your moniker this, several paragraph thing, and then before you said Gertner. How did that all come about?
The limerick started innocently enough. I was like 10 years old. I was reading a joke book, like a paperback book, either gross jokes or truly tasteless jokes or something like that, volume 12 or whatever. And one of the jokes in the book was, how is a penis like a Rubik's Cube? The more you play with it, the harder it gets. And I said to myself, at 10 years old, I said to myself, my blessing will be that one day I can repurpose this within professional wrestling. and that was me calling my shot, and it happened. And they were just that short to start. It was that, or it was it was or sometimes it was based on a song lyric. It could be anything. It could be squeeze my lemon till the juice runs down my leg. It was just, it was like one or two lines. And eventually it just became paragraphs and stanzas. And, I did one at a Guilty as Charged pay-per-view in Florida that was like 16 lines, and it was all about Disney World. And I mean, they really got, and especially when you're just coming up with them half an hour before the show, and you're going on live TV and you can't read it off a card or a teleprompter and you have to memorize it. It gets intense. But yeah, Quintessential Studmuffin was Paul's idea. I think I found out after the fact that Quintessential Studmuffin, the reason he wanted me to be that, it was an homage to Austin Idol, who he
Okay.
managed early in his career when he was in his early 20s, which was my age at the time. So it was in homage to him. Austin Idol had been the universal heartthrob. So
Okay.
I got to be the quintessential Studmuffin.
Ah, very cool. So again, with the Dudleys, you find out that they're leaving. They're going to the WWF. How did that make you feel? And I guess this is where was a decision made like, okay, like I've done the managing thing now. There's a spot opening up as a color commentator. Would have you preferred to stay managing and go with someone else, or was this opportunity to be a color commentator? It's kind of like a double question there, but how did you feel when the Dudleys left and that process of deciding whether to keep managing or take this chance?
Everything kind of happened at once, with the Dudleys leaving in kind of the middle part of 99, and with me kind of signing a contract around that time, and with the TNN show starting like 3 or 4 months later.
Right.
So between April of 99 and August of 99, everything was kind of happening all at once. I think it was right after that, but it could have even been before. I'd have to look at the chronology. But I even talked briefly with WWE. They were interested. We had a talk, me and Terry Taylor, about coming in. They were looking at me for Public Enemy, and Public Enemy wound up not having a long run there. When the Dudleys were leaving, they pulled me aside to kind of let me know, and kind of, I guess, in a way, like, Bubba being Bubba, it's not so much that he told me that he thought there may be a spot for me with WWE, or it's not so much him saying we really want to take you with us. But looking back, maybe it wasn't not that either. Like, it was hard to kind of, for me and for where my head was at and wanting to stay ECW loyal if I could. It was just tough to kind of understand and reconcile and figure out. So I guess let's just say that at the very least, I was pulled aside and informed that when their obligations were up, that they were making the transition and they were going to be going to the WWE. And I don't know if that was their way of saying, we know you're about to sign a contract, be careful in doing that. I don't know exactly. I don't know how far reaching and what it entailed as far as them looking out for me and them trying to advise me. I really, even looking back on it, don't really remember and don't know. So like I say, a lot of things were happening at the same time. And I was being offered the chance to be the co-host and color commentator for the TNN show, and decided that sounded great. The Dudleys were going to do their thing. I had never been approached at that time yet by the WWE office, so it's not like when they first knew they were leaving that I knew I was leaving. I didn't. What was on the table for me when Paul presented it was the contract that I was about to sign, and ECW on TNN in the works for a few months later. And so I took it because I figured, WWE is there, they'll be there. If I do well in this contract, it's always maybe something for the future. I was 23 still.
Shit.
And so I stayed, and wound up having, like I say, that one conversation, and it was nice to know that there was interest and that I was wanted. But I wound up, that was just kind of a feeler and just putting it out there. I think it was before, I guess it would only make sense that it was before I signed. So it was probably also something that happened right there in that middle part of 99. I'd have to go back and look and see when Public Enemy was to debut, but and see how that all worked out. But it just, you look back now and it's so pivotal and it's so landmark and it's like, such part of the chronology of your career. But when it's happening in the day-to-day calendar, week to week, and it's happening in the present and not in the past, it's just like the Travelodge. It's life. You take it as it comes to you. You know what I mean? Like it's just really kind of, and especially with ECW, it's just so super hectic and helter skelter, and you're just trying to live your life and put your ducks in a row and make these decisions sometimes that you have to make, on the spur of the moment, that you don't realize, how big a certain decision might be for you. But yeah, that's kind of where my head was at, is that I was still young. I still had opportunities with ECW. ECW was still strong. And they gave me my big break in the first place. And I was a big fish there. And I was blessed to be somebody who was a featured performer that wasn't doing, the in-ring physical blood, guts, sweat, and tears. And I just, at that time, I didn't really have any reason to leave. If the Dudleys would have told me, we want you with us, we've told them that, they're looking at you, they're going to give you a call in the next few weeks, don't sign, I don't know what I would have done with that information. That would have been an entirely different scenario from how it played out. How it played out, luckily, led to me having another couple years in ECW and being there until the end.
Unbelievable, man. That's 23. That just blows my mind. Like, to me, making such big decisions about your life at 23, contracts, and being, one of the voices of a television show, that's just blows my mind. Because at 23, I was doing nothing. Like, I was just drinking beer and being hungover all the time.
I got some of that in too. Yeah, I tried my best to get some of that in too.
Yeah. Awesome. Over to you, Jack.
Yeah. So talk to us about sort of ECW on TNN. We're more interested in the issues that ECW is having with TNN, because each week you started taking digs at them in each year, or sort of opening promos. Talk to us about those issues. We've heard about it, some of them on the show, but we want to hear your perspective on those. I know it's different for everyone.
Yeah, no, yeah, they were legit issues. TNN, I think, was we were partners with TNN, I think, pretty begrudgingly. They weren't real kind of, I don't know, man. They were just kind of showing their country stuff every hour of the week except for us, and we were just a sore thumb there. I don't know, man. Like, how do you, like, we were the lead-in for Roller Jam. Roller Jam would get half our rating. Usually, if we're strong and we're the lead-in at 8 o'clock, they should be doubling up at 9 o'clock. Like, if we're getting a 1.0, they should be getting a 2.0. And we're getting a 1.0, and them with us as a lead-in, they're losing half that audience and they're getting a 0.5. And then, like, I'm, walking around, here in the city or in New York City or in Brooklyn or wherever I am, and I see like the public bus go by, and I see the side of the bus advertisement has Roller Jam on it instead of ECW, even though we get, they at one point were showing, I don't know whether they did it in error or not, but Paul called in and complained. They showed a pure ECW 30-second, non-specific, they ran an ad. They ran a spot. They ran an ECW spot. That sounds great, right? They're promoting the show. They ran a 30-second spot. They ran it during our show. They ran a spot during our show to people who are already watching the spot. When Paul called the office and asked them, why are you running spots while our show is going on? They said, hey, man, that's your target audience. We're running the spot so that wrestling fans will see it. It was, I don't know. I mean, we did what we had to do. And I think they were doing what they had bigger fish to fry, and they probably knew that they were rebranding to Spike TV within 12 months. And they probably wanted WWF, and they probably said to themselves, we're going to acclimate our viewers to wrestling being part of our format. And then if ECW, like a guinea pig, gets over, we're going to dump them after the 1-year agreement, and we're going to take WWF from the USA. And that's exactly what happened.
That's so. I had never heard that story before about the advert. That's just. That makes no sense to do that. Unbelievable.
Just fucked.
Yeah.
These big corporate fucks. Anyway, that's a story for a whole nother time. A story we've also heard multiple times on the podcast is another infamous night of ECW Heatwave 2000. What's your collection of that night?
Gosh, it was great to be in LA. I'm going to be out there again in a couple of weeks doing an in-store appearance at Jimmy's World Order. I don't get out there much. It was great to be there. That was my first time working there professionally. God, what do I remember about Heatwave 2000? I don't know. I mean, it just seemed like it was a powder keg ready to explode. It seemed, there's a part of me from being in the business for a little while that thinks that everything is a work, Oh man, this is a work. It worked out too perfectly. It can't be. And sometimes it's like, oh, everybody expected this to happen, and it happened, so it was telegraphed, so it was a work. I don't know, man, what to make of. It didn't seem like a work when people were outside the building killing each other. It was. I even tried to get involved. And one of the boys tried to protect me and was like, no, go away. This is not for you. And I don't know what to make of it. It was meant to happen. It was really violent. I don't know. I'm not close enough to the situation. I'm just, as far as that went, I was a cog in the wheel. In a way you're surprised. In a way you're like, well, this riot was kind of, building for a long time now. And, I don't know, I guess XPW felt that we were on their turf and it was their turf to defend. And we obviously didn't see it that way. I mean, here we are, we've booked a show in LA and, it's a place for us to be. And this is just us doing our business. And it's tough to say, man. I the closest I got to the situation was wanting to join in and help out my friends and my fam, and being told, no, don't, this is not for you. This is, this is bad. Just kind of go hang out. And, it was really weird to be a part of.
I can imagine. We ask every person who was in ECW at that time that question because we want to make a little compilation video. But anyone and everyone's perspective is appreciated. So thanks, Joel.
Yeah, I mean, there's a part of me that hopes it was a work, like right, for as violent as it was, and for like, why are these people who are all in the business trying to advance and get over and have, nice long-term healthy careers and make money and feed their families, why do they feel the need? I get that XPW was kind of, efforting to be the West Coast's version of ECW, but I guess for that reason, like I was kind of hoping it was something that was more a publicity stunt and more for the sake of the fans than it was for the boys, but just seeing it up close and just being a part of it, I'm not quite sure that that's what that was.
Yeah. Oh dear. So anyway, I wanted to know, this, you're moving forward through 2000. Things with TNN aren't going very well, obviously. I was interested to see your perspective on when you started realizing maybe things financially or just things with ECW weren't going so well in that way with Paul? I guess maybe he wasn't there as often and things like that. When did you first notice things with ECW were kind of starting to go downhill?
So I banked with the same bank that ECW banked with. I banked with Chase. So they had Paul's signature card on file. So if I would go to the bank on a Monday morning coming from the weekend and I had a check, we got our checks every 2 weeks. If I had a check and I took it right to the bank and deposited it, I think I was able to get all of the cash for it immediately.
Right.
It just cashed through because it's Chase to Chase. For them, it's like internal cash. Because I was always able to cash my check pretty much first, like on Monday, rather than wait for it, to trickle into my account on like Wednesday or Thursday, my checks really never bounced. But I was hearing from other people that checks were starting to bounce. I think towards the very end, maybe checks were getting skipped. Like we'd get a check every 4 weeks instead of every 2 weeks. I think that's when a lot of people really thought that there might be writing on the wall. Yeah, and then there was talk that we were putting together a syndicated deal to be on late Saturday night, like 12:30 a.m. on like local like ABC network. You guys have your ABC, but ABC, the American Broadcasting Company, that's owned by Disney, that's in the same family as like ESPN and stuff. The local ABCs, like in New York, it would be Channel 7, whatever, through a Disney deal, through their syndicated is called Buena Vista Television. And I think, they like, even though ER, the old medical show, was on NBC network here in the States, you could watch it like Saturday nights at 12:30 on like your local ABC affiliate. It was like a syndicated deal. So there was talk that we had that in the works for ECW. One of the things I heard working at the studio doing production was that, and we talked about this on a recent episode of my podcast with Blue Meanie and Josh Chernoff, that was extreme. But what I had heard was that there was interest in turning us into a reality show, where hijinks at the Travelodge, for example, would become par for the course, because the show would be half episodic wrestling and the other half like the boys on the road, like driving to the towns with each other. Yeah. So there was talk of doing that with the people behind Real World, Bunham and Murray. That trickled to us. We never knew what rumors were true, what was real, what was, further developed maybe and being hoped for, on our side than it might have been on the other side. And who knows, there might be some stuff that, people really hoped that ECW would make a deal with them and ECW was kind of being standoffish. We realized our value at that point. It was tough. When did we know? I think everybody knew at a different time. Late 2000 was just, it's a tough time, man. Christmas was coming. It was just a really wild time, man. 2001 was tough, because we did our January pay-per-view. Yeah. We ran billboards that said there was a March pay-per-view coming. It never came. And then here in the States, you think about just wrestling, but also outside wrestling. ECW doesn't do their March pay-per-view. WCW shuts down in about March. Paul Heyman shows up at WrestleMania, March, April. And then as you're trying to finally get over that, 5 months later, it's September and we have 9/11, So it was a really, really rough time 20 years ago. But yeah, I mean, how did people know and when did people know? Tough to say. It probably affected people in their personal lives differently. I think that's, obviously the kind of question that everybody would have a different answer to. But when the money kind of stopped, or when the money skipped, or when we were hearing all these different kind of efforts or last ditch efforts, or when we, the TNN contract ended, I think, first week of October 2000. So for October, November, December, January, we're only on in syndication.
Yeah.
We don't have the TNN show anymore that we worked for so many years to get a network show, and we wound up only having it for like 12 or 13 months. It's tough.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So you spoke of all this, but I wanted to just ask you if you were at the final show in Pine Bluff. You went there? No,
No,
it's all right.
I
Just
wasn't there for
curious.
that weekend. No, I think the last live event I did was the Guilty as Charged pay-per-view.
Okay, no, it's fair enough. I just wanted to check on that. Over to you, Jack.
Sure. So why didn't the WWF end up bringing you in? I mean, you were the perfect fit back then. I know that you mentioned the Public Enemy didn't have a long run, which they didn't, but they still could have surely found something else for you, even during the invasion. I mean, you would have been the perfect fit even in 2001.
I appreciate that. I get asked it all the time. And unlike a lot of stuff I think that people get asked as much, I don't have an answer. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know whether they think I'd be difficult to work with. You know, I went to TNA, and in the course of a promo with Goldilocks, I kissed her. And I think that it wasn't written in the script. And in ECW, we didn't have scripts. And in TNA, we did. And I kind of had creative input where, so I don't know. So word gets around. So sometimes I wonder myself, like, do they think I'd be hard to work with? I really don't know. I've run the gamut in my mind when it comes to conspiracy theory or just plain logic of why maybe I haven't gotten a closer look, or why I never wound up there, or why the interest at specifically certain times hasn't been there. Like there have been it goes from everything to, do they think I'd be hard to work with and that kind of thing, to like, it's almost tough to put into words. You try to, the same way you guys are wondering it, internally I'm wondering it, and there's just no answer for it.
Yeah.
Hopefully, there's always, it's the power of yet, hopefully, as a talker who's not bumping around and physically in there working, my best days are ahead. And, you look to somebody like Paul Heyman, my mentor, he is 10 years older than I am. So he's out there right now, 55 years old, in the prime of his career. Yeah. So who knows, maybe 10 years from now, he won't want to be out on the road and doing it anymore. And he would want to pass the torch to a protege. And for all I know, I'm 10 years away from having a nice 5-year run. Yeah. I have, you never know what tomorrow holds. So I don't know. But I'm thankful to be in that position where, this year I'll be 46. I'll be 30 years in, and my best days are ahead, I'd like to think. So
yeah. That's awesome, man. That's a lot of the time. That our guests on our show will talk about. They're talking a way where they feel like their days are well behind them. So that's awesome to hear that you still think you've got a lot to offer and a lot left in the tank, man. So that's great. Especially after 30 years.
Nothing's changed, but as time goes by, you get experience, and as time goes by, no matter how much knowledge you have, no matter how much data you have, no matter how much information you have, no matter how much education you have, the one thing that takes time to develop is wisdom. There is no wisdom before age. There is no wisdom before experience. So every day, more business acumen, more wrestling psychology, more thinking and working and planning and practicing. And, you just have to hope that experience and that wisdom is what will one day bring you to the table, hopefully as a performer, if not as a performer, maybe as a producer and agent, door I like to think is always open.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, I've done my bit in trying to get Joel Gertner back on TV. AEW asked, what are 10 things you'd like to see from AEW this year? And the first thing I put on the list was hire Joel Gertner.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Hey, they had the Sinister Minister, James Mitchell, on this past week's Dynamite. So
Oh,
never say never.
really? Oh, man.
Yeah,
Nice.
for a wedding segment, man. It was
Oh, perfect.
you brought up TNA before and Kissing Goldilocks, and you were in TNA with the Rainbow Express. So why were you there for such a short time? And how was the experience?
Yeah, it was a good time, but like you say, it was a short time. I don't know why it was so short. I mean, like I say, there was that promo with Goldilocks, and it might have been seen, instead of me trying to add to it or just give it some more flavor, it might be seen like I was going into business for myself. I don't know. And then right around that same time, on the business end of things, they were being misled. They were being kind of lied to by their pay-per-view analytics arm called Team Services. They were being lied to about how many buys they had, where they were kind of being pumped up and juiced and being told, oh, you've got this many buys, so you've got this much money coming in the next few months. Come to find out that was a work. They didn't have the level of exposure that they did. And in the weeks to come, in that early part of their development, they wound up having to cut down on fly-ins. I was a fly-in. So when I stopped getting booked, and I said to myself, it could be because they think that you're going into business for yourself, you're hard to work with, but it could also be that you're a fly-in and there's this Team Services scandal. It could be or maybe it's not binary, maybe it's both, maybe it's neither. You never know. So I wound up kind of relocating, I should say, to Nashville. And I lived there for about 4 months. And I tried to get on by showing them and visiting there pretty much every week that, hey, I'm a local now. I'm here. So if you want to use me, you don't have to worry about flying me or putting me in a hotel.
Wow.
I'm in Nashville. I've come here because I want to work here. And they were just going through a transitionary time. And I wound up not catching back on with them. And I wound up coming home to New York after about 4 months.
Shit.
Nice. Fuck.
Rightio. Well, guess it's over to me, Jack, with I guess the question I'm most excited to talk about, because it's awesome at the same time, but your involvement in it really, I guess when I look back, it upsets me a little bit. It's ECW One Night Stand, the very first one. Obviously, it was an amazing show. And as I've said many times, I never really thought that the invaders from Raw and SmackDown were, essential to be on the show, but I guess they felt otherwise. So first of all, how do you first find out about this and get contacted to be a part of it? Secondly, what did you think about your inclusion on the show? And thirdly, I just thought it was fucking bullshit that you didn't get to do what we're all wanting to see you do and hear from you, which is do the fucking Gertner thing. So please tell me, what did you think of all this, and why was it that you were going to be cut off before you even got to do your bit?
You'd have to ask the writing team that. I'm not sure exactly. Probably just for the heat, you know what I mean? Probably they figured, people who like me as a babyface talent probably really wanted to hear it. So the heat would be in, heels like Bischoff and JBL and those types, Kurt Angle, cutting me off and not letting me do it. I guess that's the heat is the whole reason this guy's here is to do that thing. So don't let him do it.
Yeah.
What a great night for me to work with the WWE in my hometown at a building where I had gone to see Monday Night Raw when I was 17, 18 years old. Just amazing, really, really great experience. Tommy Dreamer was working in human resources at the time, talent resources. And he reached out to me. I'm 99% sure that he reached out to me. I don't think I reached out to him first upon getting word that the show was happening. I'm pretty sure that he hit me up. But be that as it may, we wound up on the phone with each other. And, yeah, just you know, a great night. A whole bunch of pros to work with. It really looks like JBL broke off the stump of his foot in my ass. It didn't feel that way. I don't think it was all adrenaline either. I think he was a pro. I took my own bump down about a half a flight of steps, maybe the whole flight. The bit with Bischoff and the coffee, and the bit with Kurt Angle interrupting me. And I mean, listen, man, how many legends do you want to work with in one segment? You know what I mean? Eric Bischoff, Kurt Angle, JBL. You know, you've got an Olympic gold medalist, you got a wrestling god, and you got the guy that beat Vince for 82 weeks. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
can't complain there. Amazing. Just to, you know, again, I wasn't a fly-in because I was local. It was in New York. I lived in New York. I think I took a taxi home. It was that close to home. It was, we got there at 12 noon. We left the building at 12 midnight. I was staying over my parents' place that night because I was living in Brooklyn. I think they lived in the city closer to the building. So like I said, I took a cab home. So I left the building and all of the electric vibe and the atmosphere, and it was only an hour or two after the show ended. I left the building at 12 midnight. By 12:15, I was in my parents' house, laying down on the couch, winding down, decompressing. Which is the antithesis to those Travelodge days where you'd be up until 6 a.m. But just you know, they gave me a pay-per-view bonus as if I was signed, as if I was on the roster.
Oh, wow.
I wasn't expecting the bonus. They didn't need to give it to me. Just 6 months down the line, it came in the mail. Just a really, really, really pleasant experience. I was actually under a contract for the weekend. I was a freelancer. I was an independent contractor. It wasn't a full-time, 3-year or anything like that deal, but it also wasn't just like the indies where it's done on a handshake. There is an agreement that you sign, and I signed it literally for those 2 days, Saturday and Sunday. And it was just, while you're under their contract, even though it's 2 days long, you're treated as their contracted talent. And it was just a very, very professional experience.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's
man.
great.
That's awesome. And maybe they got me, and I've been mad all this time because they knew how to get heat out of me. But I wanted to see what I wanted to see. But another thing that you got shoved over by JBL, and I'm afraid of heights. And you're up on that balcony there, man. I would have shat myself being pushed. That was such a hard shove. If I were you, I would have been like, shitting myself.
There were stairs right there, man. There was the stairs to go down to the level below. And when he pushed me right near those stairs, I didn't know how long the camera was going to stay on me. And I didn't know what was in frame and what was out of frame. I didn't know whether the camera was going to keep the stairs. So I didn't want to fall at the top of the stairs and just freeze myself like ice and paralyze. So I just took the tumble and rolled all the way down the stairs in case the camera was going to catch it. Looking back, it probably didn't. And I took a big staircase bump for nothing. But, you got to do what you got to do.
Absolutely, bro. So another one that I wanted to throw at you was Hardcore Homecoming. That's in the old ECW arena. It's the same weekend, I believe. Were you a part of that show? And if you were, how did that feel to be, be there? And did it feel like the old ECW?
I was part of that show. I think I lined up that one before Tommy reached out to me. I'm trying to remember how things worked out. But I think when I got the WWE offer, I think I wound up saying to Tommy, I've got this other show. I'd prefer not to cancel. Can I do it? And I think he said, yeah, there's a handful of talent that are on both shows. And if you got that show first, you can do it. So I was on that show. And it was great to be back at the arena. It was like a high school reunion. It was cool to see everybody. It was awesome.
I think I blanked. I couldn't remember what you did on the show. I think you had a confrontation with Cyrus.
Yeah.
So was that fun to rehash that one last time between you two? Because you two just had great chemistry.
It was, yeah, it was kind of closure that wasn't closure. You know, it was like,
Yeah.
oh, let's put this behind us, and then of course, you know, like, you know, Tom and Jerry and like Itchy and Scratchy. It's like it ends the way it always ends. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And Joey was involved in that one, and he was like completely on my side. Like there was no tweener vibes from me whatsoever. I was a complete baby face because it was ECW's, you know, hardcore homecoming. It was just, yeah, that was a blast.
That's cool, man. And before I throw it to Jack, just quickly, I needed to get your perspective on this because this was something that kind of got my hopes up a little bit back in the day. But Extreme Rising, I know that you did color for them for a bit there. Your perspective, what the hell happened there with that? Because I thought there was a lot of promise. Aside from the first show, of course, there was a bit of a problem there. But after that, I felt like it was really starting to gain a bit of momentum.
Yeah, it seemed like the issues from the first show did not go ahead and kill all of the demand for the product. So that was great. The talent that was lined up was great. So there was a lot of promise. There was a lot of potential. I don't know if it was... It must have been something administrative. I know they wanted to do TV. Yeah. They had a local kind of cable outlet that was local to Philly and like 100 miles or so either way of Philly. And they were going to do some local TV. And it was going to be, I think at the end of the day, it was going to be me and Matt Stryker. They were looking at me and they were looking at like, I think maybe they gave me a short list of 3 people that they were looking at with me. And I think out of the 3 of them, I had worked with Stryker and I knew he was local and I might have recommended him. So they were looking at that. I don't know why nothing more ever came of Extreme Rising. It kind of fizzled out and I think they wound up selling tickets to a show that didn't happen and then they had to go through the whole refund process. And there was the thing at the end with like the title and the title changing hands and like I don't know, it kind of got really convoluted. Again, I think it's a case of, you know, I'd rather not give you an answer or give you a non-answer or just kind of admit my ignorance to it than just, you know, kind of, you know, pick the tea leaves and like I was close enough to the situation while I was there and I was close enough to have input, make recommendations and I was, you know, I was in the circle, but maybe just outside the circle enough that I don't really know the details as to why it fell apart.
Fair enough. Over to you, Jack.
Sure. Last round of questions here before we go to our final segment, 5-second frenzy. So going on with the sort of the trend here of those ECW reunion shows. How did you enjoy TNA Hardcore Justice?
That was fun. That was, you know, you talk about closure, and I was kind of actually hopeful that might reopen, you know, a pathway to me working there regularly. But after doing the first couple of live TNA shows, which wound up being, I think, the first 3 weekly pay-per-view episodes, and then not being able to get back on with them while I was kind of staying in Nashville, it was fun to go back, and it was cool. Some stuff was the same. You know, still, you know, there's the structure that we didn't have in ECW of having scripts and, you know, producers for your match and whatnot. Like, but I didn't mind that. You know, I worked well, I think, within that kind of format when I did ECW One Night Stand in 05. So, you know, didn't mind that. You know, actually, it was really, there's nothing to say bad about my experience at Hardcore Justice. It really was a good time, and it was also very, very professional, and I thought it really went well. It was great to hang out with everybody, great to see everybody, which at the time was only happening every few years. But yeah, I had a blast.
It's awesome, man. And last of all, Joel, do you have any regrets?
No. I don't ever regret things that I do. I'm of the school of thought that regret is for the things you don't do. Like if I would have not left school, if I would have not tried to go full time with ECW, if I would have, just said to myself, maybe this opportunity will still be there in 3 years. If it wasn't, then I would have never known, and I would have never known exactly what I did miss. So I'm always of that kind of school of thought. Take the chance. If you're offered a ride on a rocket ship, take it, no matter what seat it is. And so I would rather regret doing something than regret not doing something. And having said that, I don't regret everything that I've done because I got to live a dream. I got to do work that was the work that I wanted to do. So no, absolutely zero regrets.
Amazing, man. Awesome stuff. Carl, over to you for 5 Second Frenzy, and we'll close the show out.
Yep, cool, man. And before we get to 5 Second Frenzy, I just wanted to say this. I interviewed Bay Ragney, who used to be Chubby Dudley, back in the day. And I was talking to, obviously the conversation is strictly going to be about the Dudley family. And I said to him, wouldn't this be a great idea for like when this COVID thing's over and done with a star cast or something like that, a Dudley family reunion with every single person who was a Dudley, Snot Dudley, Little Spike, yourself, get everyone there. I mean, you weren't a Dudley, but you were Studley Dudley. Let's say that. Get the whole gang together, for a panel and fans can ask questions. I think a Dudley family reunion would be a hell of a draw for something like StarCast. So just throwing the idea out there, putting the seed in your mind, and hopefully eventually it can all come together.
Sounds good.
Right. So Joel, before I get to 5 Second Frenzy, do you have anything that you want to plug?
So we've got the podcast that I just started doing at the beginning of the year. We do it once a month at the top of the month. Me and the Blue Meanie and Josh Chernoff hosting, and it's called That Was Extreme. It is available on adfreeshows.com through their Patreon, but it is at the free level. So you may see that it's Patreon, but this title right now is free content. I do my own personal podcast called the 69-Minute EARGASM. You can find that wherever you get podcasts. Alexa will play it if you ask nicely. And we have wrestling and stand-up comedy guests. So the 69-Minute EARGASM. I have a YouTube channel. Please subscribe to that. It is under my name, Joel Gertner. I'm going to be at Jimmy's World Order wrestling store in 2 weeks on February 21st in East Los Angeles, California. I am on Twitter at Studmuffin Says. I am on Instagram at Quintessential Studmuffin. And if you have disposable income and you would like to help support a Studmuffin, you can reach out and get a Cameo digital video message, cameo.com/Joel Gertner. I've got t-shirts available as well. You can find those at prowrestlingtees.com/Joel Gertner.
Wonderful.
Beautiful.
Excellent stuff, bro. And I'm definitely going to start checking out some of those podcasts. So here we go, Joel. 5 Second Frenzy. You have 5 seconds to answer each question. Even if you break the 5 second rule, it's okay. We won't be upset. So here we go. The very first question here for 5 Second Frenzy. Your favorite wrestler?
Jake the Snake Roberts.
Nice.
Excellent. The next one's your favorite opponent, but I guess who would be your favorite adversary?
Cyrus.
Yeah, thought so. The favorite match you've ever seen?
If I only have 5 seconds, Savage versus Steamboat from WrestleMania 3 still holds up.
Still good.
Yeah. Favorite TV show?
Favorite TV show? Gosh. It was South Park at one time, and then it was Family Guy, and then it was BoJack Horseman, animated theme there. Favorite TV show? Gosh, I liked House. I liked Gonna have to ask the wife. Damages was good. Wow, that's a tough one. I love
That is.
TV, but it's tough to come up with a favorite show. Yeah.
It really
Well,
is.
Hopefully, you don't have too much of a hard time with the next one. Your favorite film?
Oh, favorite film, Shawshank Redemption.
Oh,
Nice.
awesome. We've had that answer several times on the show. Favorite book?
Favorite book. I'm not much of a reader. I wish I was. I often make the initiative to read and then I fail beautifully. Can I tell you my least favorite book recently?
Sure.
The
Oh, yeah.
Great Gatsby, which last year I promised myself that I would read it. It's only like 180 pages. It took me all year because I kept dilly-dallying to the point where I was sitting on my couch at 11:30 at night on New Year's Eve with 10 minutes of reading to go, just so I could force myself to finish it in that calendar year, like I promised myself 1 year earlier. I had already read it in high school. It was no better the second time around. It drags a lot. It's written in a certain style that is just not for me. So I'd have an easier time of telling you my current least favorite book, which would be The Great Gatsby by Fitzgerald.
That's great. That's a great
Excellent.
answer.
That is. Favorite musical artist?
The Killers? Have I had a favorite musical artist since The Killers? The Killers. Disturbed. The Killers. I like rock. Yeah.
Excellent. Your favorite food?
You don't get a body like this by accident. I've got about 15 favorite foods. First thing that came to mind, French onion soup. Yeah, buffalo wings, which I'll be having today for the Super Bowl. French onion soup.
Very nice. Favorite place to eat on the road?
Cracker Barrel, which you guys probably don't have in Australia, but
Don't.
that's also the kind of answer that you've probably gotten more than once. But
Yeah.
Cracker Barrel and Waffle House, and
Waffle
there are a lot of
House.
iconic. Yeah, both of those are pretty good.
Yeah, can't wait to come to the US one day and go to both those places. And Denny's.
Hell yeah.
We get Denny's a lot as well.
Hell yeah, and all of those places are super affordable. Like, not a lot here in the States is, but those places, like, you drop 10 or 15 American dollars and you just walk out stuffed.
So good.
Awesome, man. Favorite alcoholic beverage?
Favorite alcoholic beverage? I like a slow gin. I like these really, for lack of a better term, girly drinks, like these red, fruity, like cocktail drinks. I was a bartender and I made some of these and then I tried them and I liked them. But a slow gin fizz is good because it's kind of like a Shirley Temple with alcohol. And there's another drink that I've made. You can make it as a shot, but I make it in a highball glass, like 10 ounces, and it creeps up on you because it's 2/3 alcohol. But it tastes like it's less than 1/3 alcohol. It's called a cherry Jello.
Okay.
It tastes exactly like red liquid gelatin before it gelatinizes. And it's 1/3 amaretto, 1/3 black house, and 1/3 cranberry juice. And somehow that cranberry juice cuts the 2/3 of the drink that's alcohol. The whole thing tastes like juice, but it's super dangerous, high in alcohol content, sweet like sugar, and if you have 3 of them, you're on your ass.
Awesome, man. I'll have to try that one day. Second last one for 5 Second Frenzy. It's the naughtiest one of 5 Second Frenzy. Your favorite female body part?
Feet.
Interesting.
You
Very
can tell a
nice.
lot. Here's the thing. If a woman takes care of her feet, then you can imagine she takes care of all else.
Everything else will be,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
high quality.
I find feet. Look, you can't compare a woman's vagina to a man's vagina because we don't have them. You can't even compare a woman's breasts to a man's breasts because that doesn't make any sense. But you can tell, like, if I showed you a picture and there was no face involved, it was just the foot, you would be able to tell a woman's foot from a man's foot. And a lot of it is in how much care they take of it and how much they pride. So like I say, you know, a woman who takes care of her feet is destined to be very, very concerned with her appearance, I think, in general. So I just, for some reason, I find feet sexy.
Very good, bro. Very good. And the last one, Joel Gertner, your favorite curse word?
My favorite curse word is God fuck it. I think if I'm walking around the house and like something falls or I stub my toe, I think I've got this thing that I scream out that's God fuck it or something similar to that. So I guess I can coin that as a personal one. I used to pick up back in the day. I used to go up to women in the hotel bar after the ECW show or whatever, and as a compliment to them when they were trying to pick me up, and I in return might be flirting back with them, I would call them sugar pussy. But I don't consider that a curse word, so let's just go with God fuck it.
Let's go with that. That's awesome.
That's
That's a
fantastic.
fucking great answer.
That's some good shit right there. Well, Quintessential Studmuffin, Joel Gertner, we are so happy that we got the chance to finally have you on the show. We really appreciate it. You should be so proud of what you've done in the wrestling business, because in the most isolated city in the world, Perth, Western Australia, you have two guys right here that appreciate you for everything you did, my friend.
Thank you guys so much for having me on. I really appreciate it, and this was a ton of fun, man. I can't believe how quickly it went, dude. It's awesome.
Yeah, time flies when you're having fun, Joel. So thank you again for having fun with us today.
Thank you so much.
And thank you guys for watching here, the Insider's Edge podcast on the WZWA Network in conjunction with Blue Wire Hustle. This is myself, Karlifornia Infirri, alongside Jack Wallace and our friend Joel Gertner, and we will see you next time.